Here.
I know that there are a lot of questions about these trips, but in the case of Asia, the government has argued before, and I'm sure again this time would argue, that to do business, you got to be there to do business.
The problem for taxpayers is they're shelling out the money to pay for these trips. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars. In fact, on a recent trip, the Premier stayed at a hotel that was a $500 a night hotel.
Right, but if you're going to contrast that with the business you're doing, we're seeing seafood exports to China topping $100 million and exponential growth year over year. A couple of $1,000s for a trip, if that's what it's going to produce, seems like a drop in the bucket.
And we look at the Premier going to Europe earlier this year. Sure, he dropped in on Michelin. We know that Michelin had an announcement recently, so there's some expansion there. Was it the result of the Premier visiting them at the head office?
The other point we can look at, I guess, would be the Premier's trip this year to Washington in midst of the new NAFTA negotiations. I think it's probably a stretch to suggest that the Premier's presence in Washington was going to have any kind of outcome on those negotiations.
That was more about political optics.
It really becomes a case-by-case basis as to whether or not the government can justify the trips.
What taxpayers really want to know is their money being spent wisely? And it's up to the government to be able to make the case that yes, this is bang for your buck.